welcome to No Movies in Hell.
And I'm LaClaw Scott, and today we are reviewing Mitchell's versus the Machines.
This was a cute movie.
Yes. I figured that you'd like it. It's very different. And I know that I would have to say that you're growing into animation. But I think the writers of this film and the directors of this film have done a lot of really great things. So therefore, it's kind of expected that it will be more of an adult feel in terms of like the jokes and in terms of like the setup and the story than a typical like Pixar or Disney animation.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been more into. To me, animation falls into different categories. Like I love animated series, like TV shows, like Bob's Burgers. It's one of my favorite shows. The Simpsons, seasons up to like season 12, I would say. Awesome. Like home movies, Dr. Katz, like all of those sort of adult animated series, some of my favorite shows. But then when it comes to like movies and animation, I just associate it with children, like children's movies, very simplistic themes, very not that they're not good, but I just don't think they're interesting in the way that things like Drive My Car will immediately pull me in when I see the trailer. When I see a trailer for Raya and the Last Dragon, I don't feel pulled in, even though I just watched Raya and the Last Dragon and I really liked it. Not to spoil that episode. Yeah, so there's something about I feel maybe kind of the same way about Broadway musicals. The themes are usually very simple. I don't get drawn in the way I get drawn into a play. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I thought Mitchell's versus the Machines was very cute. It had some interesting concepts and jokes that worked really well. I really liked the mom character in it. I really liked, maybe that's part of it too, is that as I get older, I'm starting to change who I identify with in those like family animated movies. But yeah. But you recommended it. It's Oscar nominated. So I recently started subscribing to Disney Plus. So I thought, why not?
Yay. I mean, it is a Netflix film, and it did go kind of like under the radar. Like I think what's nice about Netflix is they tell you what's trending. I don't know how, like if it's globally or just, maybe it's just US based because there's clearly a different catalog, but it was trending as number 1 last year. And it was like, oh, that's interesting. And then you started to hear about the cast and it's like, oh, that's very interesting. Excuse me. And then it was like, okay, I don't have anything, else going on. Let me just like watch this. And I was like, oh, wow, it's actually pretty decent. But I think also, since we're still on the pandemic, it is very hard to, excuse me, I don't find myself texting people like, hey, I watched, and then like a laundry list of things. It's usually when you meet up with people and you're like, oh, you saw this movie. Oh, I saw this and this is really good. So I think that's like how the context of like recommending it for you is like, oh, I'm not just going to be like, hey, Chris, I watched this is great. It's always like, oh, well, we saw Encanto. I know your sentiment towards that. But I was like, actually there's some decent stuff. There's some like, I wouldn't say like Encanto is trash. I would say that there are some things that are super hyper aware of the adult audience that's in that, like grew up on cartoons. They've aged out of Disney, but still the underlying factors that are plot points in the film resonate with you. And in this case, it's technology and, it's a child going off to college. And then it's like, the robot apocalypse. So lots of fun stuff.
Yeah. I really like the father character too, and how he like the birthday gifts and anniversary gifts that he gives his family is like this very specific screwdriver. Yeah, I feel like I can kind of relate to that.
Very
as
tactical
well.
person.
Right. We've had so many movies. Is it more than usual this year that kind of give you that anti-technology trend or theme? Like Don't Look Up, which isn't, I guess, anti-technology necessarily, but it's anti-social media.
Yes.
And so I felt like that was part of this as well. And I don't know if that's going to be a trend that we see continuing on. I feel like it's a little bit played out in terms of like what more can we say? You know, social media is a tool. It can be used for good or it can be used for evil. It's just like a hammer. I
Yeah.
can hammer this nail or I can destroy something with it. So I don't know what more there is to say about it. So it'll be interesting to see if this continues to be a theme or a strong theme.
I agree. It's interesting because you don't see like 80s or even 70s film talk so much about like the adoption of television. It's like, or television as evil. You see that a couple of times, but I think, you know, even in horror films, it's more or less like the other, and it takes or manifests in various ways, and then it becomes synonymous with social undertones. So yeah, I do feel like, oh, technology is kind of like a cop out. Nobody's talking, you know, I'm sure in like talkies, people weren't going like, oh my gosh, that rotary dial phone, watch out.
Right. Well, yeah, I don't know. So what'll be I don't know what the next big villain will be, but maybe we can
I
make
often like defer to Bond movies for that as a trend of like, okay, what is like next, right? And so with the latest one, it was like a biological, like a seriously personalized biological weapon. And I'm like, but that it kind of has been done before, but like, what else is next?
right. I don't know. I don't know. I wish I knew, right? Because then I would
Same.
invest in whatever that is. I do think
Well,
I mean, you see trends during wartime, and it'll be interesting to see how the Ukraine activity is going to impact entertainment and really this kind of generation, which hasn't seen a lot of conflict. It'll be
yeah, I
interesting to see.
completely agree. I think it'll be more like documentary style at this point because everybody has a device. And that the story can't be twisted in a way that things have been in the last couple years. Yeah, I find it fascinating. It's like our generation has seen a lot. And storytelling will be very different.
I agree. It'll I mean it'll take a couple years before we really see what the impact before we can look back and see what the overall impact was. But it's starting now. Like I'm already seeing a ton of stuff in a bunch of different channels, I guess formats. Some of it looks very scripted and some of it looks not scripted at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's like who's the medium makers? You know, what medium are you paying attention to, especially now that there's like a proliferation of social media? And then are these like younger audiences going to gravitate to established players, or are they going to social media, or are they just producing themselves and leveraging, you know? Yeah, it's a lot.
All right, back to our slides, Mitchell's versus the machines. So this is the full 30, 1 to 30 scale, 20 being the average. So this got slightly over average.
I mean, I think I over indexed a little in the story. I really like the story. I really like the, you know, the father trying to figure out how to bond with his daughter before she takes off to college, and like, you know, this family road trip, and of course technology gets in the way, and then like the dumb robots, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, the dumb robots were great, where they would draw their faces on.
Oh,
And I agree. I think I gave it a bump in the Raiders' choice because I thought it was very cute, and I was glad that I watched it, and I'd recommend it to anyone, especially anyone with a family. From a story perspective, I didn't give it above average because I felt like a lot of the themes were well-worn paths, but I did like it the way it was put together, so I bumped it up in Raiders' choice versus story. But other than that, we're pretty dead set
yes.
on all the other categories. All right. Do you have anything to talk about as we wrap this episode up?
So I guess I would like to plug Metrograph in the lower, is it the Lower East Side? I feel like it's like more Chinatown. And on Ludlow and essentially East Broadway. That's one of my favorite places to be. And they recently opened their Commissary, which I absolutely love. The little popcorn and the beverages are usually like international. So you can get like, oh my gosh, they have, well, one, you can get like a Coke from Mexico. You can also get like jasmine tea or peach tea from Japan. Their candies are either like local, so there's places in brands that they have that are like candies from like Pennsylvania, versus kind of like the broader. Oh, and they have Pocky too, which I love. And it's such a great experience. I love Metrograph. I'm so happy that they've opened the Commissary so you can eat while you watch a film. And then of course they have like their restaurant upstairs, which is nice. I think I might go there tonight.
Fun. I have never been there, so we'll have to go together sometime. Like,
yes, we will when you come back. I have a membership there, but like I still think that like it's just a nice, quiet repertoire film that has some really, really great stuff.
Awesome. All right.
Do you have anything to plug?
I don't in this episode, but yeah. So thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time.